Before we jump into Prototype itself, it is worth quickly talking about why this series just vanished and why we never got Prototype 3 or the modern remake. Prototype was developed by Radical Entertainment under Activision. The first game in 2009 actually did pretty well for that time. It was the top-selling game in North America that June, with over 420,000 copies sold in a month, and then eventually moved more than 2.1 million units worldwide, which by that time is not bad at all. But by the time Prototype 2 came out in 2012, Activision's expectations had changed. They were pivoting hard to only mega franchises. Prototype 2 did okay sales-wise, but in Activision's eyes, okay just wasn't really enough anymore. They wanted games selling like Call of Duty, so they shelved the franchise, and they restructured Radical and eventually dissolved most of the studio. Prototype became one of those cult series left in a limbo state. No big reboot, no next-gen follow-up, and not even a series remaster beyond a light biohazard bundle they did for newer consoles. And that's why in 2025, Prototype feels like this weird ghost of a franchise, a brilliant anti-superhero concept, if that's what you want to call it, that just got abandoned in favor of safer, bigger moneymakers. And that's exactly why I wanted to finally play it. It's a game you either barely remember or have never even played before. And it's kind of like if the Spider-Man games and an evil run of Infamous had this dark, twisted baby, then dropped it smack dab in the middle of a biohazard apocalypse in Manhattan. And this dropped all the way back in 2009, which is just crazy that 2009 was 16 years ago. Man, I'm getting old. I'm getting so old. I was 16 at the time, and now I can officially say I am in my 30s. But this game dropped on the Xbox 360, PS3, and the PC, which I do want to quickly point out that this game would not run on its own, and same thing with Prototype 2. I actually had to go and download separate files to paste in the Steam files of Prototype 1 and Prototype 2. So just a little thing I had to point out. So I did want to see, as someone playing this for the very first time, does it still hold up? Is it still fun, or is it just a clunky relic best left forgotten? So let's start at the literal beginning of me booting up Prototype, because it immediately reminded me and took me back to the 360 PS3 era. The graphics were a little muddy and gray, like there's this permanent overcast hanging over New York. Character faces have that stiff, plasticky look that was very common back then, but honestly, it weirdly works. It adds to this grimy, unsettling atmosphere, and the whole world just kind of feels like it was dipped in this disease sludge that it felt so cool playing through it and just seeing the city completely change from start to end. So you start as Alex Mercer, who literally wakes up on a morgue slab with no clue how he died. Seconds later, Blackwatch soldiers are chasing him down alleyways, bullets are flying, and Alex is sprinting and vaulting over walls. And that's the exact moment I thought, okay, wow, so this is going to be something completely different from modern superhero games. And again, I'm going to keep referencing superhero games because that's just what this game reminds me of. That's what Infamous reminded me of, which Prototype and Infamous came out the exact same year. So I will be making a few references back, especially to the most recent one that I played, Spider-Man, because I do see some similarities between the three. But there is no slow build-up, no gentle power curve. You're basically a walking bioweapon from minute one. You're tearing through squads of soldiers, you're shape-shifting your arms into claws, running straight up skyscrapers like it's nothing. Even in the first mission, I immediately felt this weird mashup of Spider-Man with the way you are leaping across these rooftops, and you also eventually start missions from rooftops, kind of like how you did in Spider-Man whenever you're going to the different people's houses or the laboratories and all that fun stuff. But then there's also a little bit of Infamous, except without any karma systems. You can slaughter civilians, crush tanks, and nobody really cares, which in all honesty is kind of cool to experience that. I know that might sound kind of sadistic in a way, that I'm just running around destroying the city and I really don't care who gets in the way, but the game just kind of gives you zero guardrails and it's pretty fun. All All right, let's break down what you actually do in Prototype, because this is where the game really shined for me. The entire core is about total freedom of movement and absolute power. You can sprint straight up vertical skyscrapers without slowing down, leap several city blocks in a single jump, glide across intersections like some weird monstrous flying squirrel. But at one point I was hopping from rooftop to rooftop at night. The skylines all lit up, infected were prowling below, and I'm not gonna lie, it felt just amazing to be in the presence of this world and playing as a character who again was just wreaking havoc throughout it. But then jumping from rooftop to rooftop when the sun was going down, I kind of got this weird, almost like a beautiful sense of playing this game. Like I had a moment of peace when the entire city was going to hell. It was just kind of a cool moment. Combat is just as over the top. You unlock new shape-shifting powers like giant claws that slice through APCs, a massive blade arm that does devastating spin attacks, whip fists that let you yank helicopters straight from the sky, and devastator ground slams that liquefy entire squads in one horrifying burst. Then there's the consume system, easily one of the coolest pieces of design in the game. So you hunt down specific targets across the city, scientists, officers, Black Watch commanders, and then you absorb them into yourself as Alex Mercer. This gives you XP, disguises, and these quick glitchy web of intrigue memory flashes that reveal what Gentech and Black Watch are really up to. It's like piecing together a giant conspiracy theory one victim at a time. It's far more interactive and personal than just reading files you find scattered throughout the city. Now, another huge surprise that I had with Prototype, and this is gonna sound like a weird take, but to me, Prototype kind of did respect my time as someone playing through the game. If I wanted to upgrade my glide distance or boost my devastator attacks, the game scatters these tiny little challenges around the map, rooftop checkpoints, combat arenas, stealth hunts that literally take under a minute. There's no 80-hour fillers like killing 500 of a certain type of enemy or having to go from the top of the map to the bottom of the map in a certain amount of time. It's just all really pretty quick, and it gives you a decent amount of points to spend on your abilities. Plus, the campaign itself is only about 10 hours long if you do a little bit of extra side stuff as well. So it really never overstays its welcome. Now, let's talk about the world of Prototype, because it evolves in some pretty wild ways. At the start of the game, Manhattan is under strict military lockdown. You see Humvees rolling down the streets, soldiers posted on rooftops, helicopters patrolling above. But as the virus spreads and the story pushes forward, the city descends into complete hell. The entire block turns into hive zones covered in red, pulsing growth with infected pouring out of subway grates and windows. Giant hunters start scaling skyscrapers, smashing cars, chasing you across rooftops. You'll have moments where half the map is on fire, military blasting infected tearing apart soldiers, and you are right in the middle of it, causing even more chaos. It's genuinely impressive how chaotic this game feels, especially from a game from 2009. And I want to keep saying that because it is 16 years ago. And I mean, I was fighting 20 enemies at a time, including hunters and helicopters and tanks and soldiers. And in all honesty, like, my game didn't bug out. It never crashed. It never did anything that it wasn't supposed to do. My frames didn't drop while all of this was going on. It was just, again, very impressive for what this game could do for that time. All right, so let's talk about what absolutely works in Prototype and what really doesn't, in my opinion. So feeling like this unstoppable apex predator is just an incredible feeling. If you see a tank, it's just a toy. If you see a helicopter, you can jump kick it out of the sky. And consuming the memories to uncover the conspiracy, to me, is pretty brilliant and a different way to understand what is actually going on. Again, where other games rely on audio diaries and they rely on notes that are found scattered across the world, you just get this as part of the story, and it allows you to see more of it, and it solves the questions that you had throughout the story one little piece at a time. Now, there are some negatives I have to say about this game, because Prototype is absolutely a product of its time, and there's nothing bad about that, especially, again, when we're in 2025. The game came out in 2009, so it's hard to hold a game like this to the standards of today. But I do have to say the world itself is pretty hilariously unrealistic at times. I mean, you'll see businessmen calmly walking to work literally a block away from a hive zone full of infected monsters. The city logic really isn't there. About 75% of the way through the game, I was kind of upset that there was no sort of moral system at all. Literally, there was zero. You could do anything. You could kill as many soldiers as you wanted to or civilians, and as you progress through the game, it does make sense. So I did jot this down as a note, as a negative that I had, but then again, once you play more of it and you get to the end of the game, you understand why. The cutscenes, I gotta talk about the cutscenes because not all of them were bad by any means, but if I were to start a mission, sometimes Alex would walk in a building to talk to who we needed to talk to. They would say maybe a line or two of dialogue, and then I was off destroying bases again. And to me, it's like, whoa, I have to hit pause because what was even the conversation had? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And there were times in the game where I actually did experience that multiple times where I was going to destroy helicopters, I was going to consume this guard, but the cutscene or the flashback happened so fast that if I looked away for a split second, I missed something. Now, again, that's probably my fault, my ADHD brain, but just not having full focus on the screen. And even if I did, there were still times where I was like, hold on a minute, wait, replay. What just happened? Why am I going across the city to kill this person? And they are kind of just, the cutscenes are kind of cryptic. And that did get kind of old after a while. But again, that was just a few missions. That was definitely not every single one. Now, there were some absolute frustrating moments that I had with the game, and that was the end combat system. In the last few hours, the game definitely ramps up by throwing everything at you. I mean, at one point I had 7 helicopters after me, 10 rocket squads that were down below on the ground, or they were on rooftops just impaling me with all these rockets. Hunters, tanks, infected mobs were all attacking me all at once to the point where I was just getting pinned up against buildings, and I literally couldn't control my character. He was just doing that weird animated motion whenever you get hit by something in a video game, and that just happened over and over and over and over again. But I go from this apex predator to honestly borderline almost rage quitting missions. I mean, there were some missions that just straight up almost ruined the game for me, and it was the last couple of missions towards the end. I mean, it was being stun locked by rockets, hunters clawing me to pieces, tanks blasting at me, helicopters hitting me, getting attacked by infected in the city, and it became overwhelming. And once I got past that part, it kind of felt more of a relief than it was satisfying, if that makes any sense. And I gotta talk about the second to final boss because it was one of the most aggravating fights I have ever slogged through. I was getting pelted by these green orbs from across the map, chased by mobs that never really stopped until I finally realized, oh, I can just climb up the tallest building in this area and spam air slice the boss below. And it worked, but by that point, I was just more relieved that it was over than satisfied. Despite all of that, I do want to talk about the story because it's actually one of the coolest dark twists I've ever seen in a, I want to use this word lightly, superhero-like game before. And before I continue, I do want to say I am going to talk about the ending of the game a little bit. So if you don't want to hear it, feel free, click away, come back whenever you play it, or enjoy. Because man, through all these memories that you consume, you learn that the real Alex Mercer was a scientist at Gentek. And when Blackwatch cornered him at Penn Station, he smashed open the Blacklight virus vial to avoid capture, infecting the entire city. And then, the shocker, he died. The Alex you play isn't Alex at all. You're the virus, a sentient mass of biomass that consumed Alex's corpse, absorbed his memories, his appearance, his rage, and decided it was Alex. So by the end, when Alex stops the nuclear missile meant to wipe out Manhattan, it's literally a virus with a dead man's memories saving humanity. And Alex's, or the virus's, final line kind of nails it. It says, or he says, I'm something less than human, but also something more. There's no karma choice, no hero or villain sliders like Infamous. It just ends with that haunting ambiguity. Will this creature keep protecting us or decide humanity's the next plague? It's not really deeply emotional, and it fits the world kind of perfectly, in all honesty. But it also has something modern games lack. It's unapologetic, it's purely about chaos, power, and moral ambiguity, but it felt like I was discovering a fascinating, slightly rotten, but absolutely unforgettable piece of gaming history. And honestly, I'm really glad that I finally got to experience it. And I want to talk about Prototype 2 for a second because, man, I've only played about 2 hours of that game so far, but it seemed to have improved Prototype 1 in every single way. And honestly, it's a big shame that they didn't continue this series because, man, I could not imagine Prototype today on Unreal Engine 5. And I know a lot of people are tired of seeing games in Unreal Engine 5, but man, I love it. I think New York would look absolutely beautiful, and being able to play as this virus just wreaking havoc through a city, especially New York, in Unreal Engine 5 would be just such a fun thing to experience. So that's it. My first ever playthrough of Prototype, the quote-unquote anti-superhero game that we all kind of forgot about. Now, I want to hear from you guys. Did you play Prototype back in the day? If you've never played it, do you think you're finally going to give it a shot? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.